Welcome back to the podcast.
We have a great show for you today.
Welcome in. Thank you for joining us for today's deep dive. We are jumping right into a subject that I am sure you have had to navigate at some point.
Absolutely. I mean, pretty much everyone listening right now has dealt with this.
Yeah, that overwhelming bone-deep feeling of just systemic exhaustion.
Right. It's that exact scenario where you wake up.
You look at the clock.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you realize that your standard single cup of coffee is just simply not going to be enough today.
No, not at all. You feel this deficit so deep that you kind of assume you need this highly engineered drastic intervention just to function.
Massive life change.
Right. But today we are exploring a completely unexpected and entirely natural alternative to that caffeine dependence.
It is a really highly relevant issue for a lot of people. And the solution we are going to extract from our sources today is striking mainly because of its simplicity.
It really is.
We operate in this culture that consistently searches for complex synthetic solutions to fatigue. We look for the newest supplement or...
The strongest stimulant out there.
Yeah, exactly. But today, we're analyzing something that you likely walk past in your kitchen every single morning without a second thought.
And the source material we're utilizing to get there is actually a really fascinating piece of communication.
It is.
We are looking at a short educational script. It's titled The Yellow Magic Bananas for Better Sleep.
Good, great title.
Right. And this comes from a piece called Daily English Podcast 86. And what makes this source unique is that it is explicitly designed for language learners.
Specifically structured at the A2 beginner level.
Exactly. It's built around a dialogue between two characters. There's Anna, who sees as this sort of health-conscious guide.
And Peter.
Yes, Peter, who represents the universally relatable, chronically tired student.
He's basically all of us.
Pretty much, yeah.
But you know, it is an excellent lens through which to view this topic.
Mm-hmm.
Because the script is engineered for an A2 English comprehension level, the writers are forced to strip away all the dense medical terminology.
The stuff that usually muddies the waters of sleep hygiene discussions.
Exactly. It distills complex biological mechanisms into very clear functional truths. It kind of forces us to look at the baseline mechanics of sleep without getting lost in all the jargon.
And that is exactly the mission for our deep dive today. We're going to look past the intentionally simplified dialogue of this script, and we are going to extract the actual physiological realities it presents.
Because there is real science there.
There is. We want to understand the mechanics of why a standard breakfast fruit functions as such an effective nighttime tool.
Which requires a bit of a paradigm shift, honestly.
How so?
Well, we are culturally conditioned to categorize our food by the time of day.
Oh, right. Bananas equal morning.
Exactly. Breaking that entrenched association is the necessary first step to understanding the actual utility of the foods we consume.
That makes a lot of sense. So to set the scene from our source material, the dialogue opens with the character Peter yawning heavily.
As one does.
Right. He explains to Anna that he is incredibly fatigued due to poor sleep the night before, and he immediately articulates the modern reflex.
He says, I need 10 coffees.
Yes, I need 10 coffees.
Which is the default response for most of us, isn't
Oh,
it?
absolutely.
When the body is deprived of restorative rest, the immediate instinct is to artificially stimulate the central nervous system. We flood our receptors with caffeine just to mask the fatigue.
But the character Anna steps in to correct this reflex. She explicitly advises him against the 10 coffees.
Right, because introducing massive amounts of a stimulant is the literal opposite of what his system actually requires to recover.
Right. And she suggests that the intervention he actually needs is a banana.
Which sounds crazy at first.
It does. Peter's reaction in the script mirrors exactly what most adults would say. He questions it immediately. He goes a banana for sleep, but bananas are for breakfast.
He is entirely locked into that cultural categorization we just mentioned.
Yes, he is. But Anna reframes it for him. He refers to the banana as happy pill from Mother Nature.
Now, that phrase happy pill is a very effective piece of A2 level communication, though we should probably be careful not to literally equate a piece of fruit to actual pharmaceuticals.
Right, right. We're not giving medical advice here.
Exactly. What the text is really doing with that phrase, though, is shifting the perspective. It is asking the reader to view the food not just as caloric energy for the morning, but as a vehicle for targeted chemical precursors.
Precursors that actively alter your physical state.
Yes, precisely.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because the script moves directly into the underlying mechanics, Anna explains to Peter that bananas contain two specific minerals.
Magnesium and potassium.
Right. And she describes these two minerals, functionally calling them muscle relaxers.
Which is an incredibly efficient way to summarize a really complex cellular process.
It really is.
When we normally think of muscle relaxers, we usually think of a prescription medication designed to forcibly depress the central nervous system after an acute injury.
Like a pulled back or something.
Right. But the script is highlighting the body's endogenous relaxation process.
Yeah, because magnesium on a biological level actually competes with calcium in your muscle cells.
That's right.
Calcium is what causes your muscle fibers to contract, and magnesium steps in to block that calcium.
Which is what physically allows the muscle to finally unclench and relax.
Yes, so when the text calls them muscle relaxers, it is scientifically accurate.
Precisely. And the script explains this by saying, these minerals talk to your body and tell it, hey, it's time to relax.
I love that phrasing.
It's great. If you look at how we carry ourselves throughout a typical workday, we are generally operating with a high sympathetic nervous system tone.
We're totally stressed.
We are bracing ourselves, and our muscles are in a constant state of low-level contraction.
just hunched over our desks.
Exactly.
And I want you listening to just imagine your own tense muscles after a long day. That physical tension is a massive barrier to entering a proper sleep cycle.
You can't just forcefully shut down a hyper-aroused physical system.
No. If your muscles are physically contracted, your autonomic nervous system is receiving signals that you are still in a waking, active environment.
Right. The transition into restorative sleep has to begin with that physical release.
The physical unwinding process.
Yes. The magnesium and potassium serve as the necessary biological tools to transition the body out of that sympathetic fight or flight state.
Then into that parasympathetic rest and digest state.
That is why Anna's advice in the script is so mechanically sound. You have to address the physical tension before you can expect the neurological transition to sleep to occur smoothly.
Which brings us directly to the next point in the source material. Once the physical body is addressed, the script moves to the brain.
Right, moving from the body to the brain.
Yes. Anna introduces another core component. Eating bananas aids the brain in the production of melatonin.
What's fascinating here is how the text conceptualizes the role of melatonin. Peter, the student character, recognizes the term and immediately identifies it as the sleep signal.
And Anna expands on that concept with a really evocative analogy. She calls melatonin a natural blanket for your brain.
That is such a good image.
Isn't it? I think that is a highly effective way to explain the hormones function to a layman, or in this case, a language learner.
It is a very accurate analogy because a lot of people misunderstand melatonin.
They really do.
They treat it like a sedative, expecting it to aggressively knock them out the way a sleeping pill would.
Right, taking huge doses of it.
Yeah. But melatonin doesn't work that way. As the text suggests, it is a signal. It communicates to the brain that the environment is dark and that it is safe to initiate the sleep sequence.
Exactly. When you think about the function of a blanket,
It isolates you.
right, it regulates your
Right.
temperature and it provides a physical boundary of comfort.
Yeah.
Framing melatonin as a blanket for the mind perfectly captures how the hormone helps quiet down the cognitive arousal we experience
Wow.
after a long day of mental stimulation.
It helps shield the brain from the lingering alertness of the day.
It's brilliant. But the script doesn't stop at the evening wind down.
No, it doesn't. It introduces a secondary delayed mechanism.
Right. Peter asks if this evening routine translates to better sleep, and Anna confirms it. But she adds that bananas also contain vitamin B6.
Yes.
And the text specifically links this vitamin to the outcome of waking up feeling happy the following morning.
Which is an interesting dual mechanism to highlight.
Yeah, providing the nighttime blanket and the morning happiness.
Exactly. You are essentially using a single dietary tool to address two different phases of the sleep-wake cycle.
Right.
You are getting the immediate evening relaxation through the magnesium and the melatonin support. But you are also front-loading your system with vitamin B6, which your body will utilize the next day.
The biochemistry here is highly relevant.
Very much so. Vitamin B6 is a critical cofactor in the synthesis of neurotransmitters.
Okay.
Your body requires it to convert the amino acid tryptophan into serotonin, and subsequently serotonin into melatonin.
Wow. So it is not just arbitrarily making you happy.
No, not at all. It is literally providing the chemical building blocks your brain needs to regulate your mood and your sleep-wake cycles.
It is a highly efficient biological intervention.
It really is.
It highlights the vast difference between taking a single-purpose synthetic sleep aid that leaves you groggy versus providing the body with the broad-spectrum nutritional precursors it needs to run its own natural cycle smoothly.
It emphasizes the interconnected nature of our biology.
Yeah.
The quality of your morning mood is directly downstream of the quality of your cellular rest the night before.
Obviously.
By utilizing these tools, the muscle relaxers and the brain's natural blanket, you are setting the stage for an optimized morning.
I love how these simple A2 level concepts open up so much biological reality.
It's the beauty of simplification.
Right. And to ground all of this in reality, the source script introduces a practical case study.
Yes.
Peter, naturally acting as the skeptic, asks for actual evidence that this routine works.
Yeah.
He wants to know if anyone has actually seen results from this.
And here's where it gets really interesting.
Yes, it does. Anna shares an experiment conducted by her own brother.
It is a very straightforward, easily replicable trial.
Completely. She outlines the parameters clearly for Peter. The regimen she describes is entirely accessible. Her brother committed to eating exactly one banana every single night for 1 full week.
Just a 7-day intervention.
Just a week, yeah. And the results that the script details are highly specific to a very common sleep disorder pattern.
The 3 a.m. wake up.
Yes. Anna notes that prior to this experiment, her brother was suffering from a consistent 3 a.m. wake up.
Now, the 3 a.m. wake up is a notoriously difficult issue.
Oh, it's the worst.
It is incredibly common, and it is usually indicative of a deeper metabolic or environmental disruption.
It is deeply frustrating. I know I've been there. You wake up in the pitch dark, your mind suddenly kicks into gear, and it is nearly impossible to transition back into sleep.
Right.
But it is not a random occurrence, is it? There is usually a distinct physiological trigger for waking up specifically at that time.
In many cases, yes. What often happens around 3 a.m. is that the body's core temperature is fluctuating, or more commonly, blood sugar levels drop too low.
Okay.
When the brain senses a drop in glucose during the night, it perceives it as a threat.
Like an emergency.
Exactly. In response, the adrenal glands release a spike of cortisol and adrenaline.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, to trigger the liver to release stored glycogen and stabilize the blood sugar.
And that spike of adrenaline and cortisol is exactly what jolts you awake.
Yes.
Your body is chemically waking you up to address a perceived metabolic crisis.
That's exactly it.
So when we look at the brothers' experiment, eating a banana before bed, it makes perfect physiological sense why it would address this specific 3 a.m. issue.
Exactly. The banana provides a dose of complex carbohydrates and fiber,
Right.
which helps maintain a steady, slow release of glucose into the bloodstream throughout the night.
Which prevents that dramatic dip in blood sugar.
Correct, thereby preventing the subsequent cortisol spike that wakes you up.
That is fascinating.
And if you add in the calming effects of the magnesium and the potassium we discussed earlier, you have a very robust defense against midnight waking.
The results in the script reflect exactly that. Anna states that after a week of this routine, the dramatic 3 a.m. wake-ups stopped entirely.
Complete cessation.
Yes. Her brother transitioned to sleeping peacefully and continuously until 7 a.m.
That shift from fragmented, interrupted rest to a solid block of continuous sleep is the primary goal of any sleep hygiene protocol.
Absolutely.
The restoration that occurs during uninterrupted sleep cycles is profound.
And Anna describes the final outcome of that continuous rest. She says her brother woke up feeling like a superhero.
Like a superhero. It is a dramatic phrase, but it accurately conveys the stark contrast between chronic sleep deprivation and your metabolic baseline.
Totally.
If you have been suffering from cortisol-induced 3 a.m. wake-ups for an extended period, you are operating at a severe deficit.
Yeah, you're running on fumes.
Right. Finally achieving a full uninterrupted night of sleep, supported by the proper neurotransmitter precursors like B6.
It would feel like a superpower.
It really would likely feel like a massive sudden surge in cognitive and physical capacity.
I want you to reflect on your own 3 a.m. wake-ups for a second. Think about whether you might benefit from this simple change. It is a powerful testament to addressing the root cause rather than the symptom.
Yes.
If her brother had just reached for the 10 coffees every morning to fight through the exhaustion, he would have just exacerbated the cortisol imbalance.
And made the 3 a.m. wake-ups even worse.
Exactly. By addressing it at night with a targeted nutritional tool, he solved the actual problem.
The character Peter recognizes the logic immediately.
He does.
The text notes that he is entirely convinced by the case study to the point where he literally begins peeling a banana right there during the conversation.
It is a great narrative resolution for the script. Anna reinforces the lesson by leaving him with this modernized maxim. She says a banana a day keeps the tiredness away.
It is an effective adaptation of a familiar idiom.
Yeah, an apple a day, but for sleep.
Right. And Peter's response stating that he feels relaxed already just from starting to eat it.
A placebo effect?
Partly, yeah. It acknowledges the psychological component of taking proactive positive action for your health, even if the chemical effects take a bit longer to synthesize.
So what does this all mean? We started by examining a very straightforward A2 level English script designed for language learners.
We did.
But by analyzing the specific details included in that simplified text, we've extracted a highly effective, biologically sound protocol for optimizing sleep architecture.
The underlying mechanisms are really clear.
Let's summarize them.
First, we have mechanical relaxation provided by magnesium and potassium.
The muscle relaxers.
Right. These minerals regulate cellular ion channels, allowing muscle fibers to release tension, and signaling the nervous system to shift from a sympathetic to a parasympathetic state.
Second, we have the neurological support. The dietary components aid the brain in the synthesis of melatonin.
The sleep signal.
Yes. This serves as the biological signal, the natural blanket that helps insulate the brain from arousal and guides it into the initial stages of sleep.
And finally, we have the metabolic and mood regulation.
The morning happiness.
Exactly. The inclusion of complex carbohydrates stabilizes nighttime blood sugar to prevent cortisol spikes.
While vitamin B6 provides the necessary cofactors for serotonin production.
Setting the physiological foundation for a positive, energized morning.
It is a comprehensive approach to sleep hygiene packaged within a single, easily accessible piece of fruit.
It's amazing.
The ultimate takeaway here is a reminder of the efficacy of baseline biological tools.
Simple solutions.
Right. When we are faced with chronic issues like fatigue or fragmented sleep, our modern instinct is often to look for the most complex, highly engineered solution available.
Look for heavy pharmaceuticals or intense stimulants.
We do, but the text serves as a valuable correction to that instinct.
It reminds us that sometimes the best solutions aren't expensive pills or endless cups of coffee. They are simple, natural tools we already have in our kitchens. It demonstrates that sometimes the most profound interventions are found in understanding and utilizing the fundamental natural tools sitting right on our counters.
It certainly reframes the way you might look at your daily routines and dietary choices.
It really does.
Which brings us to a final thought for you to consider as we wrap up today's deep dive.
Yes. Think about this. If an everyday item, like a banana, something so ubiquitous that we rarely give it a second thought,
Right.
if that can function as a potent regulator of our central nervous system, capable of shifting a fragmented 3 a.m. sleep cycle into continuous restorative rest.
To make you feel like a superhero.
Exactly. What other highly effective, scientifically sound tools are sitting right in our pantries?
Oh, that's a great question.
What other quiet biological solutions are we completely overlooking in our cultural rush for complex synthetic quick fixes?
Definitely something to analyze the next time you find yourself reaching for that third cup of coffee. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive. Sleep well, and we will catch you next time.